on, goody girl. Let's give them some organic good food. Change your life. Change is good. Good is right. We're taking it to a whole nother level. Organic food is the fuel to love and life. Yeah. We take good living to a whole nother level. Come on and go with me. Change your food, change your life. Don't you wanna go? Don't you wanna ride on the good side? We're taking it higher and higher and higher and higher. That's the show. We take good living to a whole nother level. Change your food, change your life. Change is good, good is right. We take good living to a whole nother level. Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when and where you're listening to the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Dennis Weaver, your good food guide and founder of Change Your Food, Change Your Life, a fun, high-energy, good health edutainment company with song, story, and entertaining guests designed to inform, encourage, coach, and inspire you to make 100% organic good food choices, foods that are life-giving, not life-diminishing. Remember, eating good equals feeling good. That fun opening cut of Good Living you just heard is from our Change Your Food, Change Your Life presents Good Living, a compilation CD album, and its title track is performed by Anna Maria Paisley. It is the worldwide organic good food anthem with officially registered fans from Osaka to Oakland, Guadalajara to Gwynn Oak, Maryland, Singapore to Seattle. So the next time you hear it playing, stand. D-Money, our producer, always does right here in the studio. You can catch D-Money on his own show, Fresh Juice, on Wednesday nights, full of cool entertainers. You can get yourself the Good Living CD at changeyourfoodchangeyourlife.com, changeyourfoodchangeyourlife.com. On the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show, we've had guests from all around the United States, Canada, and Mexico who talk, write, grow, mine, farm, police, buy, prepare, serve, make, teach, design, package, and sing about organic good food. They create organic cosmetics, advocate and lobby for organic good food. They read to children about organic good food. They talk about the good health of organic good food. They use organic good food as therapy. They juice organic good food fruit. They grow organic cotton t-shirts. I'm wearing one right now. They help with gluten-free choices, offer zero-waste, package-free shopping. They lift spirits with organic floral essences and handcraft an organic sofa so soft you'll go, ah. Uncle Matt himself of Uncle Matt's Organic Juices. The Mistress of Mushrooms, the Queen of Dairyland, the Cactus Tamer, Miss Healthy Way, a Salt Miner, the Hempster, the Science Storyteller, the Professor of Pickling, and the Upcycler, to name just a few of the previous guests on the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show, all working hard to make that healthful difference in your life. I've told you the story of Mary and Tanya, when a bean is not a bean, and I proved it costs less to live the organic good food life than not. And if that's not enough for you, we've had the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show musical. You're listening to Dennis Weaver, good food guide and host of the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. That Bluebird Grain Farms organic Emmer farro with goat cheese served warm at the Hotel Bellwether's Lighthouse Bar and Grill in Bellingham Bay that I had enjoyed was so good that I asked Brooke Lucy, co-founder owner, Bluebird Grain Farms Organic Ancient Grains, to be on the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show to talk about it. It was a very tasteful show, and Brooke made me hungry with every answer. Along the way, she said, if you want to know even more about how we do what we do, we should talk to my husband, Sam. He's the farmer in our family. He's the one who raised that bowl of Ember farro from seed. So now, calling in from his farm in Washington's Meadow Valley, here's Sam Lucy.
Hello.
Welcome, Sam and Bluebird Grain Farms Organic Ancient Grains to the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Delighted to be here from the land of smoke,
It'll be
cold.
It'll be fun talking grain with you. And yes, audience, I'm biased towards the goodness of Bluebird Grain Farms Organic Ancient Grains, as I enjoyed a big warm bowl of their organic einkorn and French lentils blend with melted unsalted organic butter, organic paprika, and pepper just before today's show. Bluebird Grain Farms Organic Ancient Grains is one of the rare few farms in all of the United States specializing in historically valuable grains, ancient grains, emmer and einkorn. Why your interest, Sam, in those ancient grains?
Well, their beauty and the resilience to begin with. which stands to reason they are as close to wild grains as we know. These grains nourish populations for thousands of years. Agronomically, they work very well in an organic system as they respond to green fertility, cover crops, mineral supplements, rotations with other crops. They will also mine up their own nutrients in the soil that some modern crops will not or do not have the strength to do. But really, I would say, Dennis, is the elegance and quietness that they bring to the field is what first captured my attention. Before I learned how tasty and nutrient dense they were by nature, with all the correct amino acids and omegas and proteins that we used to have.
The beauty of the grain in the field, in addition to you growing it, just standing in the field is probably quite a wonderful thing to do.
It feels like the right crop to be growing.
It sounds like it. Sounds like Einka, EINKA, is your brand name for einkorn farrow wheat. And when we say ancient, einkorn is the mother grain to Emmer from how many thousands of years ago?
Well, 10,000 years, I would say, is easily, you can trace einkorn back 10,000 years. It is a monocot, meaning it has one kernel. Soon after, and it is known, I believe, as the first cultivated wheat. Emmer is his first child, nearly as old, but it's quite a different grain. It's not a soft wheat. The einkorn is a soft wheat and it has one kernel. Emmer is a dicot. It has two kernels and it's a very hard wheat. So I like to call einkorn the mother of the soft wheats, and Emmer is more the parent of the harder wheats. So they are very closely related, almost as old. I've done a lot of reading on it, and I believe that the einkorn is the elder. So I don't know what you would compare that to.
So when I say Bluebird Grain Farms organic ancient grains, that's pretty true. 10,000 years, right? That's ancient. Why don't more farms grow these organic ancient grains? They're lower in gluten. Many people with gluten sensitivities can easily digest einkorn with no allergic effects, and they're higher in protein. So why not?
Well, I think commodity pricing in general, right? The commodities, the big commodities, wheat is certainly one of them. The commodity pricing for the past 70 years has all been based on quantity of the crop, not nutrition. And these older wheats, the einkorn and the Emmer, require extra processing to get the goods out, but they likely do not yield as high as some of the more modern wheats that are bred to a higher input system. And I have no idea what they would do under modern chemicals. They'd probably freak out and fall to the ground. I have no idea.
At least yell and scream and call you for help, right?
Yeah, they might, and I don't know. I would probably hit them with a bunch of fish or something. But most most farmers are trained on this system. So you add in the lower yields, more steps in processing. Plus, there's a mild stigma as to these ancient wheats not being as good, less resilient, which is crazy because they're wild, essentially. They've survived 10,000 years. But they're not as good as the improved varieties of wheat, perhaps.
Well, it's real food before the boys and girls in laboratories fiddled with it, right?
Right, and they need job security.
How important is good fertile soil to the end grain?
Well, fertile soil is paramount to every crop. Certainly, most crops will grow in less than ideal conditions, but the more balanced one's soil, I say balanced, the more balanced and nutritious the fruit is. In this case, the grain kernels is the fruit, right?
Right.
And any annual crop, grains are annuals, takes a fair bit of nutrients from the soil for it to complete its cycle and become food. And so the soil needs to be replenished, either with critical inputs, whether you do it with fish fertilizer or calcium or sulfur, or hopefully through rotations of other nutrient building crops. There's no free lunch in farming or anything for that matter. And Mother Nature always bats last. So organic farming, we're always trying to learn and study nature. I've yet to see an improvement on how she does things.
Well, and all of your learning and studying pays off in the final delicious taste of those grains and organic good foods. You're listening to Sam Lucy, co-founder, owner, farmer, Bluebird Grain Farms, organic ancient grains. Sam is one of the original farmers to grow and process organic emmer and einkorn in the USA for food production. This is the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Explain the difference between the husks, hulls, and kernels found in your ancient einkorn and emmer grains compared to modern grains.
Oh, I love this part. By natural design,
That's why I asked.
the hulls, husks, I think they're interchangeable. I call them hulls. That's what encapsulates the einkorn and the emmer berries, right? And so each berry or kernel, in the case of emmer, it's 2 kernels in each hull or husk. Is extremely nutritious. These hulls are extremely nutritious, extremely protective, and have rugged awns or spikes on them, as this was the way they spread in nature. This is how they sowed themselves long before, the first version of a hoe was ever used. And so this leads in. This is where the extra processing comes in, dehulling these kernels. Unlike hybridized wheat, which has been bred to field thrash. These hulls are very protective of the kernel, and we plant the einkorn and the emmer inside the hull. We plant the hull and everything into the soil. It's its own little nutrient capsule, and boom, I've had it come out of the ground in 5 days, 3 inches deep.
So you put it in the ground and have to stand back.
Yeah. Run for cover.
Tell that fascinating story of how you have to harvest those tough emmer and einkorn ancient grains.
Well, I can tell you that I waded into my first emmer crop 20 years ago now to see if it was ripe enough to harvest. I didn't have a lot of guidebooks on this, but I do know when grains cured enough to harvest. And immediately, it felt like someone threw 1,000 pins at my Levi's, and I stopped there just as the sun was just coming up. It was the idyllic farmer scene, but literally it stopped me fast, and I thought, is this a defensive mood from this wild crop? Is it a propagation? Anyway, I set up my combine as close to what I wanted to thresh this as, oats maybe. I had read that, to go at it as aggressive as you would a modern wheat, you'd wreck a lot of the kernels. So I actually backed off everything. I backed down the tolerances on my cylinder, the speed of my cylinder, tolerances on my concave, I should say. Because what I was trying to do was thresh the actual heads apart, but keep the kernels in the individual husks or hulls, keep them intact. And so that was my experience going at the first harvesting of the ancient emmer, which is what we grew before the einkorn.
So your first harvest was a real wrestling match, huh? I'm kind of glad you won. You say the processing of those ancient grains, the processing of the ancient grains is an art and craft. What makes that so?
Do you say that it's an art and a craft? Well,
yes.
Because You have to, each field and each year is different. And so the dehulling is almost as old as the grains, right? There's various ways to do this, and originally it was done with heat, waved over flames until the hulls released the actual kernels, and then so we've devised the huller we use fractures the hull off of the kernel, but it doesn't rob any of the kernel of its germ. So we end up with a totally whole grain, and we use an impact huller. And so we need to monitor that so that we're fracturing the hull off, but not ruining the grain inside. We end up with broken grains regardless that we use for milling and whatnot. But so that's where the craft comes in, and you have to know what the grain's like. If it's been a drier year, the hulls will be more resilient, and so we may have to be a little more aggressive. But finding that balance of dehulling the emmer and the einkorn is the craft.
Do you find yourself talking to those grains?
I sometimes have even sworn at them, but generally we try to keep our relationship amiable.
This is the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio World, and calling in from his farm in Winthrop, Washington. You're listening to Sam Lucy, growing Bluebird Grain Farm's organic ancient grains, setting the gold standard for nutrient-dense whole grains for your good health. Most grain farms grow just the grain, but Bluebird Grain Farms is vertically integrated, meaning in your case, meaning from seed to package. The benefits to me and to our audience are?
Well, the benefits are we know these grains from when we do our own seed selecting to when we sow them and then grow them to harvest. We get to evaluate the quality of the crop every bit of the way and can tweak it here and there sometimes with inputs. However, we can start with a high quality crop, but by doing our own processing, right, which you've learned is a little more problematic sometimes, we now you can see by doing the processing, we can keep that quality intact through the craft of the processing, because we don't want to take a perfectly good crop and ruin it. And so if we were to send it off to what they call toll processing, to another mill to process, it'd be kind of like sending your pig off to another butcher. You wouldn't exactly know if you're going to get the same thing back and if it's going to be of the same quality.
And they probably wouldn't be talking to the grain like you do, right?
Right. We talk to every kernel. We say our prayers and all that. But before it goes in the package, so you share the blessing.
and I've enjoyed those grains. From seed to package, you grow how many different grains?
So we grow hard white spring wheat, hard red spring wheat, winter rye, einkorn, and emmer. And the only fall sown crop is our winter rye.
So you've got to be quite the conversationalist. All your organic good food grains are whole grains, even your flours. What are the health benefits of whole grain compared to refined or pearled grains?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the whole grain means all the goodies that are in the germ on the outer are kept in the kernel. And so our grains and flour are totally the way, all the goodies that are in nature are still in the grain and the flour. It's all in the outer layer of the skin, just like apples, carrots, potatoes, all the nutrients in the outer part. So keeping all the goodies that are natural only seems fair to our customers to pass that on and not use fillers or, maybe a nutrient add back of some sort that isn't there by nature, because it's going to be easier on your bodies and you're going to assume more benefits from that.
Well, I always feel better after a bowl of einkorn grain. Why your commitment to organic?
Because I care about the birds and the bees.
Very nice. And so do I.
Modernized organic farming has set the stage for a lot of destruction out there. And I
Well,
love
some of
studying
those
nature.
some of those photos of your farm, absolutely beautiful, serene. I can see you and the birds and the bees just enjoying one another and the result of your wonderful work. People have probably seen the word sustainable associated with food for some time, but now there's a new term, organic regenerative. What does that mean?
I don't know how new it is. It seems to be the latest buzzword, but regenerative ag relies on cropping systems that rejuvenate the soil. So you are able to farm a crop, but be actually building the soil and leaving it in better shape from year to year than what you started with. Sustainable, in my mind, means maintaining a certain level of productivity. It doesn't necessarily mean you're improving the soil. The cornerstone of regenerative ag is capturing carbon, keeping it in place, and improving what you're doing.
And feeding the grain. We've just been given a sign by our producer that we're almost out of time. So with the last remaining moments, I'm going to ask, after the rooster calls in the morning, do you start off every day with a farmer's big bowl of hearty, healthy, protein-packed Emmer farro?
No, sometimes I prefer the Emmer pancakes with maple syrup and butter.
Well, thank you so much for the show today, Sam, and for taking on all the elements and risk of farming to grow our food. Where would we be without you?
Well, yeah, it's a delight to be here.
If you're out and around, Bluebird Grain Farms organic ancient grains are available at Whole Foods, PCC, Safeway, and many natural food stores. Or stay at home and go to bluebirdgrainfarms.com. That's farms, plural, bluebirdgrainfarms.com, and order up packages of all those wonderful grains we've been talking about today. You'll also find recipes, and not just for breads and soups, but for an einkorn bourbon nut tart, a cranberry walnut einkorn energy bar, and a pear gingerbread spice cake. There's also an interesting series of stories called Farmer Notes. Again, that's bluebirdgrainfarms.com. And for detailed info on soil, water, and seed, listen to Sam on bluebirdgrainfarms.podbean.com. He's a smart guy. Does the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show bring in the most interesting guests or what? Sam Lucy, co-founder, owner, farmer, growing delicious, nutritious Bluebird Grain Farms organic and ancient grains for you. Don't ever miss an episode of the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show. You'll be sorry, and you won't be as smart and healthy as you could be. Thank you again, Sam.
Thank you, Dennis. It was an honor to be here.
Thanks for growing the good stuff. You've been listening to Sam Lucy, calling in from his farm in Washington's Methow Valley, growing his legendary Bluebird Grain Farms organic ancient grains. This is the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio World. In the weeks following, sometimes you'll spend the full half hour with me, your good food guide, other times of live studio guests and calling guests, as Sam did today. Coming up, more organic good food stars and their stories. And yes, we're waiting for her, our designer darling Nina Morgan-Jones, when she returns from London to Hollywood. She's getting closer, was in the south of France for a while, collaborating with an Italian designer. Organic good food has its glam, Check out Nina's rompboutique.com. Yeah, that's rompboutique.com. She sent me a note from London about a new collection with pictures. Romp and roll, baby. In the meantime, feel free to call me, your good food guide, Dennis, at 425-774-8971, 425-774-8971, or email changeyourfood@hotmail.com, changeyourfood@hotmail.com. You can get yourself a copy of the songs you've heard today, Good Living, and As We Go Out, Go Oh, on our Good Living compilation CD album at changeyourfoodchangeyourlife.com, changeyourfoodchangeyourlife.com. There are 16 tracks on our Change Your Food, Change Your Life album, 16 songs that celebrate the joy organic good food brings to life: jazz, pop, rap, gospel, blues. You can exercise to it, dance to it, sing to it, shop to it, barbecue to it, eat to it, drink to it, learn to it, lift up your day to it, be inspired by it. It is many diverse voices coming together, but with one message. Our Change Your Food, Change Your Life artist ambassadors hope that one of their songs catches your ear and makes that healthful difference in your life. You've been listening to Dennis Weaver, good food guide and host of the Change Your Food, Change Your Life radio show, along with Sam Lucy, co-founder, owner, farmer, Bluebird Grain Farms organic ancient grains. Where would our good health be without Sam Lucy growing it? This is Rainier Avenue Radio World, and be sure to get yourself the hot new Rainier Avenue Radio World app so you can take Sam and me with you. And it's free, videos, live broadcasts, and all the radio shows wherever you are. Change your food, change your life. Begin living the organic good food life, and the rest of your life just may be the best of your life. You'll have no anxiety. You'll feel better than when you began. You'll probably look better, have more energy, and be a few pounds lighter. Well, then why not change your food, change your life forever? Honor yourself by making 100% organic good food choices. Make that commitment to yourself, and if you do over the years, you'll thank yourself over and over again for having made that decision. So we wish each and every one of you in the audience our very, very best, and that you may find your good health and happiness as we have. Thank you for listening. O's up to your health.
I'm gonna go old, go old, go old, go old. Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna go old, go old, go old, go old. And I feel so good. If I knew it was about the money, I would have said that I don't want you no more. Oh, no. If I knew that you were killing me soft, I would have ran right out the front door. Oh, yeah. Now, I must confess you are as sweet as can be.